So, good day everyone. So, i-introduce ko po yung mga magre-report po today, which is si Mr. Timothy James Pudi po, and Miss Princess Castillo, and Miss Janelle Iranzo, and yung last po is si Miss Camille Orsin. So, according po kay Albert Einstein, the hardest thing to understand in the world is the income tax. So, ang topic title is taxation.
Taxation. Topic description. Taxation is crucial to the functioning of the modern state. Tax revenues pay for public services like roads, the courts, defense, welfare assistance to the poor and elderly, and in many countries much of healthcare and education too. Sinasabi dito na ang pagbubuwis ay ang sistema kung saan kinukuha ng pamahalaan ng pera mula sa mga tao at ginagastos ito sa mga bagay tulad ng edukasyon, pangkalusugan, pangdepensa, pagpapatayo o pagpapagawa ng kalsada o cover court at iba pang pampublikong serbisyo para sa mamamayan. Learning competencies. At the end of this session, the students can explain the taxation, discuss the history of taxation, and determine the contribution of the presidents in taxations. First semester, 2021 to 2022. So tax. What is tax? A mandatory contribution to the state treasury to be used in various upkeeps or services of the state. Taxation is the way the government operates to gain taxes from its people. Ang pagbabayad daw ng buwis ng mamayan ay isang obligasyon at responsibilidad dahil ang pera na nalilikom naman ay para rin sa pagpapaunlad ng bayan. Hindi maisa sa katuparan ng pamahalaan ang napakaraming itong gawaing pangkabuhayan kung walang pondong gagamitin. So ano nga ba ang mga kahalagahan ng pagbubuwis? Una, sa buwis nanggagaling ang panggastos upang matugunan ang mga pangangailangan ng bansa. Malaki ang porsyento ng pamahalaan ang nanggagaling sa buwis ng taong bayan. Kapag malaking halaga ang nalilikom ng pamahalaan, maraming serbisyo ang maibibigay sa mamamayan. Natutugunan ang lahat ng pangangailangan ng pamahalaan. Nagkakaroon ng malaking pondo upang magamit sa programa tungo sa kaayusan at kaunlaran ng bansa. Kung walang pagbubuwis, mahihirapan ang pamahalaan ay patupad ang layunin tulad ng distribusyon ng kita, pagtatatag ng ekonomiya at pagsusulong ng pag-unlad ng ekonomiya. There are 4 kinds of taxations. The first one is the revenue. Revenue is the money collected by the government for their use. This is the most common form of taxation in the country as it is the tax mostly associated with income tax. It funds most of the national projects of the country, such as supplying a budget for public school improvement, budget for scientific research, and so on. The second one is the distribution, the money given to the poor as aid for their poverty. It provides leverage for the poor to uplift their economic struggles by donating money to those in need. The third one is the representation. Representation is the money presented to the public or the people in public. And the last one is the repricing. The money added to certain products to various uses. The government controls the products or prices in order to decrease consumption of products, such as products known to debilitate or weaken the people's health, such as the implementation of the sin tax law. Sin tax law, where tobacco and liquor-based products have higher prices in order to reduce cases of lungs and liver cancer to the general public. It can also be used to help people buy the necessary materials for survival, such as the prices of the local market for meat, vegetables, seafoods, and etc.
History of taxation. In pre-colonial era, tax called buwis or handog came in forms of crops or goods, which the people living under the datu share a portion of their harvest or property in exchange for security and protection.
Good day everyone, I am Princess Castillo from Group 1. I'm here to discuss about the taxations during Spanish era, American era, and post-war era. But before we proceed to discuss the topic, bakit nga ba tayo nagbabayad ng taxes? The answer is because governments need to fund the services they provide to the community, such as education, health, defense, and infrastructure such as roads. To this, they must collect money, which is called revenue, through the tax system. Without taxes, the government would have no money to provide services. Taxation during Spanish era. Taxes collected from the inhabitants varied from tribute or head tax of 1 gold makes annually, tax on the value of jewelry and gold trinkets, indirect taxes on tobacco, wine, cockpits, burlas, and power. Other forms of taxes from the Spanish era is the tributo, which was originally between 8 to 10 reales. Tributo was a general tax paid by the Filipinos to Spain, which amounted to 8 reals. Those who were required to pay the tribute were the 18 to 50 years old males, the carpenters, bricklayers, blacksmiths, tailors, and shoemakers, and town workers such as those in road construction, and those who in public in nature. Ang pagdating ng mga Kastila ay sinasabing pinagmulan ng modern taxation. Ages 16 to 6 years old are obliged to pay a tax or tribute to the King of Spain in amount of 8 reales or 1 peso per year. Ang paraang ito ay kahalintulad ng pagpapataw ng buwis sa Spanish Empire in South America. Spain replaced tributo with cedula, which allowed them to keep track of the people who could pay taxes. Ito naman sa part na to is yung tributo na natawag noon sa pagbabayad ng taxes ay pinalitan ng cedula. Ang cedula ay ginagamit upang ma-identify kung sino ang mga taong kinakailangang magbayad ng buwis at kinakailangan dalhin ito ng mga sinumang biyahero. The difference of paying between tribute and cedula is tribute or tributo is every family ang pagbabayad, while cedula is every person. Also, ang pagbabayad ng cedula ay tinatawag ding progressive or ang naaayon sa laki ng kita. Dito naman is ang cedula is yung pagbabayad na naaayon sa laki ng kita ng pamilya or nung person. Forced labor or polo e servicio was also a network for tax payment. Forced labor was the character of the Spanish colonial taxation in the Philippines and was required for the Filipinos. Dito naman sa forced labor is yung system na yung mga men or yung mga lalaki ang nagsasuffer, and because of it they declared of high death rate. Mas required dito ang mga mahihirap kasi kung wala silang maibabayad sa taxation is pwede silang sumabak dito sa forced labor or do sa pagtatrabaho. Next is the encomienda system, which is land ownership granted by the crown to worthy peninsulares, was yet another form of tax income from the Filipinos. Dito naman sa part na to is taxes during the Spanish period was compulsory or required siya talaga. The Desmos Prejales is 1/10 of the produce of the encomienda to be paid to the government. Next is Sanctorum was the tax paid to the local church. Sanctorum was a tax in the amount of 3 reals. These were required for the cost of Christianization, including the construction of churches and the purchase of materials for religious celebrations. Other local taxes were the vinta, tax paid by people in the provinces along the coast of Western Luzon to defend the area against Muslim pirates common at the time. The Donativo de Zamboanga was tax specifically used for the conquest of Jolo. Sa Spanish era naman is people required to pay taxes for 2 reasons. First, as recognition of Spain's sovereignty over the colonies, and second, to defray the expenses of pacification or the act of forcibly suppressing hostility within the colonies and governance thereafter. The Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR was created through the passage of Reorganization Act number 1189 dated July 2, 1904. On August 1, 1904, the BIR was formally organized and made operational under the Secretary of Finance, Henry Id, or the author of the International Revenue Law of 1904. Ang purpose naman ng taxation sa during American era is the history of income taxes in the United States goes back to the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln signed into law the nation's first ever tax on personal income to help pay for the Union War effort. After it was repealed a decade later, Congress tried again in 1894 enacting a flat rate federal income tax. While the Civil War led to the creation of the first income tax in the U.S., the federal income tax as we know it was officially enacted in 1930. Next is, let's proceed to the taxation during post-war era. On July 4, 1946, when the Philippines gained its independence from the United States, the Bureau was eventually re-established. And on January 1951, the implementation of the withholding tax system was adopted by virtue of Republic Act or RA 690. During the early post-war years, the establishment of the welfare state, the program of nationalization and Cold War defense kept expenditure almost at wartime levels. It took many years for income tax to fall back to lower rates. This gradual fall in the burden of direct taxation was possible through the increasing effectiveness of existing indirect taxes and by introducing new and more efficient ones.
Marcos era. The most notable programs implemented were the Blue Master Program and the Voluntary Tax Compliance Program. So ito po yung ang pinakakilalang ipinatupad ay ang Blue Master Program at ang Voluntary Compliance Program po. The Blue Master Program was adopted to curb the abuses of both the taxpayers and BIR personnel. So dito po is pinagtitibay po ang Blue Master Program at para po masugpo ito ang mga pang-aubuso ng mga nagbabayad po sa buwis at mga tauhan po ng BIR. Next is Marcos era pa rin. The Voluntary Tax Compliance Program was designed to encourage professionals in the private and government sectors to report their true income and to pay the correct amount of taxes. So dito, the voluntary na programa sa pagsunod sa buwis ay idinedesign upang mahikiratin ang mga professional na pribado at sektor ng gobyerno na iulat ang mga kanilang tunay na kita at mga nagbabayad ng tamang halaga ng mga buwis. Marcos era pa din. So, in 1970, the tax account number or TAN was initiated, providing the taxpayers a permanent identification number resulted to foster verification of tax records. So dito, nung panahon daw po nung mga 1980, 1970 is pinasimulan ang mga tax account number or TAN na nakakapagbigay po ito sa mga nagbabayad ng buwis ng permanenting numbers na nagpapakakilanlan na nagresulta sa mas mabilis na pagbe-verify po ng mga talaan ng pagbubuwis po. Next is President Marcos promulgated the National Internal Revenue Code of 1977, which is updated the 1934 Tax Code. So dito po is ipinahayag po ni President Marcos ang National Internal Revenue Code noong 1977 na nakapag-update po noon ng 1934 Tax Code. Aquino era. The 1986 Tax Reform Program was adopted, which was designed to simplify tax administration and make the tax system more equitable. So dito, ang 1986 Tax Reform po ay nakapagpatibay na idinidesign po upang pasimplihin lamang ang pangangasiwa ng buwis at gawin lamang pong mas pantay ang sistema ng pagbubuwis. Aquino era. On 1989, the Tax Administration Program was initiated, which is the embodiment of the Bureau's mission to improve tax collection and simplify tax administration. So dito sa Aquino era is noong 1989 daw po is pinasimulan po ang programa ng pangangasiwa ng buwis na siyang nagsasagisag ng mga misyon ng bureaus na nakapagpabuti at may pangolekta ng buwis at gawing mga simple lamang ang pangangasiwa ng pagbubuwis sa panahon po ng Aquino era. The program contained several tax reform and enhancement measurements, which include the use of the Taxpayer Identification Number or TIN, and the adoption of the new payment control system and simplified net income taxation scheme. So dito, ang program po ay naglalaman po ng mga ilang mga tax reform at mga enhanced measurements. Sabi nga po, na kinabibilangan po ng mga paggamit ng taxpayers identification number or TIN at may nakakapagpatibay po ng mga new sistema ng pagkipag-control po sa pagbabayad ng buwis at simplified net income taxation SIM po. Next is Ramos administration pa rin po. The ACTS or Action-Centered Transformation Program was undertaken to realign and direct the entire organization towards the fulfillment of its vision and mission. So dito po ang ACTS or Action-Centered Transformation Program po is sinasagawa lamang po upang muling ihanay at i-direct lamang po sa mga buong organisasyon na nagtutungo sa katuparan ng vision at yung sa mission nga po about sa kay Ramos administration po. Next is Ramos administration pa rin. So it was during Commissioner Chato's term that the 5-year tax computerization project or TCP was undertaken in 1994. This involved the establishment of a modern and computerized integrated tax system and internal administration system. So dito po sa panahon po ni Ramos administration, pinanunungkulan po ng Commission Chato na magsagawa po ng mga limang taong tax computerization project or TCD noong 1994. So kasama po nito yung mga pagtatatag ng mga moderno at computerized na integrated tax system at yung sa internal administration system sa Ramos administration po.
To further discuss the next administrations, I am the next reporter, Timothy James Fule. Now, let's proceed to the next administration, which is Estrada's administration. One of the most significant reform measures was the implementation of the Economic Recovery Assistance Payment, or also called ERA program, which granted immunity from audit and investigation to taxpayers who have paid 20% more than the tax paid in 1997 for income tax, VAT, and or percentage taxes. In order to encourage and educate consumers or taxpayers to demand sales invoices and receipts, the raffle promo Humingi ng Resibo, Manalo ng Libo-Libo was institutionalized in 1999. In dating Pangulong Joseph Estrada's administration, Deputy Commissioner of the BIR Beethoven Raulo was appointed as the new Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Under the leadership of Commissioner Raulo, uh, pinriority dito yung pagsubaybay sa mahigpit na pagsubaybay sa pagsunod sa tamang pagbabayad ng buwis, lalong-lalo na dun sa mga tao na malaki ang binabayad na buwis sa ating bansa. Then, after that, the next administration is Arroyo's administration. One of the most notable of which were the implementation of the Voluntary Assessment Program and Compromise Settlement Program and the expansion of coverage of the creditable withholding tax system. So, una sa lahat, ano nga ba muna yung o sino ba yung naging commissioner dito sa termino ni dating Pangulong Gloria Macapagal Arroyo? Uh, After the newly installed President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, she appointed the former Deputy Commissioner Attorney Rene G. Banez as the new Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Under the leadership of Commissioner Banez, the BIR's thrust was to transform the agency to make it taxpayer-focused. This was undertaken through the implementation of change initiatives that were directed to, number one, reform the tax system to make it simpler and suit the Philippine culture. Number two, re-engineer the tax processes to make them simpler, more efficient, and transparent. Number three, restructure the BIR to give it financial and administrative flexibility. And lastly, number four, redesign the human resource policies, systems, and procedures to transform the workforce to be more responsive to taxpayers' needs. So, una sa lahat, ano nga ba muna yung creditable withholding tax system? The term creditable means the taxes withheld are deductible from the income tax due the taxpayer payee or be offset against the income tax due of the taxpayer. Then the next administration is Aquino's administration or Pinoy's administration. In this administration, Attorney Kim S. Jacinto Henares was appointed as the new Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Commissioner Henares focused on filing of tax evasion cases under the Run After Tax Evaders or also called as RATE program. Ano nga ba muna yung tax evasion? First of all, tax evasion is an illegal action in which an individual or a company avoid paying tax. It involves hiding false income without proof of inflating deductions, not reporting cash transactions, and many more. Tax evasion is a serious offense that comes under criminal charges and substantial penalties. Dito sa tax evasion, ito yung pinagtuunan ng pansin dito sa administration sa termino ni Pangulong Aquino. Then the last administration is Duterte's administration. On December 19, 2017, President Rodrigo Duterte signed the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion or TRAIN law. Under TRAIN law, it exempts all taxpayers whose annual income is less than or equal to 250,000 to pay their taxes. On the other hand, the TRAIN law, petroleum products and consumer goods with either natural, artificial, or high fructose syrup sweeteners will get an increase in its prices, with natural fruit juices and milk being exempted from this increase. So, ano nga ba muna yung nagiging epekto ng train law? Train law corrects and simplifies the current tax system as well as make it fairer by lowering the PIT, reducing VAT exemptions, and adjusting excise tax rates on petroleum products and automobiles. So, what is the purpose of the train law in our country? First of all pala, this law took effect on January 1, 2018. The aim of this law is to make the Philippine tax system simpler, fairer, and more efficient to promote investments, create jobs, and reduce poverty.